The rain hammered the penthouse windows like fists demanding entry. But Harlan Voss stood unmoved in the sterile glow of his corner office overlooking Seattle's fog-choked skyline. "Elias, this was never meant to be more than what it was, a distraction from the grind," he said, his voice flat as the steel desk between them, eyes already drifting to the city lights below like they held more promise than the man he'd just pulled into his arms hours before. Elias Thorne felt the world tilt then, his coffee cup slipping from numb fingers to shatter on the marble floor. The dark spill mirroring the fracture ripping through his chest as Harlan turned away, suit jacket slung over one shoulder, leaving only the echo of a door clicking shut. Elias stumbled out into the downpour, the cold Pacific Northwest chill seeping through his thin shirt like accusation. Each step toward the ferry terminal a war against the sob clawing up his throat. He collapsed onto a bench under the awning, phone buzzing with unread texts from friends asking where he'd vanished to after the company gala. But all he could see was Harlan's face, those sharp jawlines and storm-gray eyes that had whispered promises in the dark now reduced to this indifferent blade. "You were my anchor," Elias murmured to the empty night, the words dissolving into the rain, as a distant ferry horn wailed like the grief he couldn't yet name. In the months leading up to that night, Seattle had felt like a dream woven from mist and ambition. Elias had arrived 2 years earlier, fresh out of a community college graphic design program in Tacoma, chasing the elusive glow of the tech boom. At 26, he'd landed a freelance gig revamping logos for Voss Dynamics, Harlan's empire of AI-driven logistics software that was reshaping supply chains from coast to coast. Harlan Voss wasn't just a CEO. He was the alpha etched into every boardroom legend, 33, broad-shouldered with a perpetual 5 o'clock shadow. His Texas drawl softened by years in the Pacific Northwest but still carrying that raw, unyielding edge. Born in the dusty panhandle of Amarillo, Harlan had clawed his way up from coding in garages to commanding a waterfront headquarters in Belltown, where glass walls framed the Space Needle like a trophy. Their first meeting was unremarkable on paper. Elias in a borrowed blazer too tight across the shoulders, pitching bold color schemes in a conference room that smelled of fresh espresso and printer ink. Harlan had leaned back in his leather chair, arms crossed, appraising him not with the predatory gleam Elias had feared from Silicon Valley tales, but with a quiet intensity that made the air hum. "Show me something that doesn't scream startup desperation," Harlan had said, and Elias, heart pounding, pulled up a mock-up infused with Puget Sound blues, deep, turbulent waters that mirrored the city's restless soul. Harlan's lip had quirked, the ghost of a smile, and by the end of the week, Elias was on retainer, his tiny studio apartment in Capitol Hill suddenly alive with late-night revisions and takeout containers from Pike Place. It started innocently enough, or so Elias told himself in the quiet hours before dawn. Harlan would text at odd times, 2 a.m. queries about font pairings that devolved into voice notes about the weight of running a company that employed 3,000 souls. "Ever feel like you're herding ghosts?" Harlan asked once, his voice gravelly over the line, and Elias, curled under threadbare sheets, confessed his own specters. A father lost to opioids in rural Ohio, a mother who mailed birthday cards from Reno but never called. Vulnerability bridged them like fog over the Sound, and soon, coffee runs turned to walks along the waterfront, Harlan's hand brushing Elias's in the crowd, electric and unspoken. By summer, the affair ignited in a way that scorched. Harlan's penthouse became their sanctuary, a sleek expanse of mid-century modern lines and floor-to-ceiling views where the world outside blurred into irrelevance. Elias remembered the first time Harlan kissed him. Fierce, unapologetic. After a brutal investor call left the man pacing like a caged wolf. "You steady me," Harlan growled against his neck, hands mapping Elias's lean frame with a reverence that bordered on worship. They moved together in the dim light, bodies slick with sweat and need. Elias arching into touches that peeled back layers of isolation he'd armored since coming out at 18 in a town that whispered slurs like prayers. Harlan was everything Elias hadn't known he craved. Commanding yet tender, his alpha presence a balm to Elias's quiet storms, whispering affirmations in the afterglow that made Elias believe in forever. Fall brought deepening roots. Harlan introduced him to his inner circle, discreetly of course, in this city where queerness bloomed openly but corporate glass ceilings still loomed. Dinners at Canlis with its cedar beams and cityscape vistas, where Harlan's foot nudged Elias's under the table, a secret Morse code of possession. Elias redesigned the company app, infusing it with intuitive flows that earned Harlan's public praise in a staff memo. Thorne's vision captures the pulse of innovation. Privately, Harlan rewarded him with weekends in the San Juan Islands, renting a cabin on Orcas where they kayaked at dawn, Harlan's laughter booming over the waves as seals bobbed curiously nearby. "You're mine, Eli," he'd say, tracing the freckles across Elias's nose, and Elias would melt, believing it with the fervor of a man starved for home. But cracks spiderweb beneath the surface. Harlan's ex, a venture capitalist named Reed Kensington from his Austin days, lingered in photo albums. Elias pretended not to notice, blonde, polished, the kind of man who summered in the Hamptons. Harlan dismissed it as ancient history, but Elias caught the way his lover's phone lit up with late-night pings. The furrowed brow smoothed away only in Elias's arms. Work bled in too. Voss Dynamics was courting a massive merger with East Coast firms, the kind that demanded Harlan play the straight-arrow patriarch, schmoozing senators and shaking hands with old-money donors who eyed diversity hires like liabilities. "It's temporary," Harlan assured him during a stolen lunch at Elliott Bay Book Company, his thumb stroking Elias's wrist under the table. "Once it's locked, we go public. Hell, I'll shout it from the goddamn ferry deck." Elias clung to that promise through November's gray veil, when holiday lights twinkled prematurely in Pioneer Square. The company gala at the Museum of Pop Culture was meant to be their coming out, metaphorically at least. Harlan had hinted at an after-party toast that would change everything. Elias spent hours on his outfit, a slim-fit navy suit that hugged his runner's build, nerves fizzing like champagne as he navigated the velvet-roped crowd of tech elites and local artists. Harlan found him by the Jimi Hendrix exhibit, all charisma in a tailored tux, pulling him into a shadowed alcove for a kiss that tasted of victory and bourbon. "You look like sin wrapped in silk," Harlan murmured, and Elias's world narrowed to that heat, the promise of upstairs in the executive suite. They barely made it to the penthouse, clothes shedding like inhibitions, Harlan's hands urgent as they tumbled onto silk sheets. Words spilled in the haze, Harlan vowing to build a life beyond boardrooms, Elias confessing dreams of a house in Fremont with a garden for heirloom tomatoes. Dawn crept in slow, painting their tangled limbs gold, and Elias dozed with his head on Harlan's chest, listening to the steady thrum that felt like fate. Then came the rain, the office, the words that eviscerated. Elias replayed it on the ferry ride home, the Olympic mountains mocking him with their indifferent peaks. His apartment greeted him like a tomb. Plants wilting on the sill, sketches of Harlan's logo scattered like confetti from a funeral. He stripped off wet clothes, showered until the water ran cold, and curled into bed, the scent of Harlan's cologne clinging like a curse. Sleep evaded him, chased by memories. Harlan's laugh in the kitchen at 3 a.m., flipping pancakes with theatrical flair. The way he'd trace Elias's spine during thunderstorms, murmuring, "I've got you." Lies, all of it or worse. Truths discarded like yesterday's pitch deck. Morning brought nausea, chalked up to heartbreaks bile, but it lingered through freelance edits for a coffee roaster in Ballard. By evening, Elias wandered Queen and Hill, the neighborhood's steep streets slick underfoot, passing couples hand in hand without the armor of secrecy. He texted a friend, Theo from design school, now slinging lattes at a queer cafe in Capitol Hill. "Need a drink? Everything's fucked." Theo's reply was instant. "Doors open. Bring tissues." The bar was a haven of exposed brick and rainbow flags, vinyl spinning lo-fi indie that wrapped around Elias like a hug. Theo slid him a whiskey neat, his own dark curls tied back, empathy in his warm brown eyes. "Spill, babe." Was it the hot boss with the trucker mouth? Elias nodded, the dam breaking in halting sobs, the passion, the plans, the polite severance like a pink slip for his soul. Theo listened without judgment, arm around Elias's shoulders, then pulled out his phone. "Road trip tomorrow. Portland. Clear your head with some craft beer and bad decisions." Elias agreed, desperation outweighing sense, and as they clinked glasses, a fragile resolve sparked. Survival first, then reckoning. But deep down in the marrow where hope festered, he wondered if Harlan felt the void too. The echo of a love discarded, cold as Seattle's winter bite. Portland's bridges arched like veins over the Willamette, pulsing with the city's undercurrent of reinvention, and Elias threw himself into it like a man fleeing flames. Theo drove a battered Subaru plastered with band stickers, windows down despite the drizzle, blasting synth-pop that drowned out Elias's brooding. They crashed at Theo's cousin's loft in the Pearl District, a converted warehouse alive with street art murals of defiant lovers and fractured skies. Days blurred into bar crawls along Burnside, where dive joints served IPAs with names like Heartbreaker Haze, and nights dissolved in bed with anonymous hookups that left Elias hollower than before. "You're chasing ghosts," Theo said one afternoon, as they nursed hangovers on the Alberta Art Street, graffiti-splashed walls framing their picnic of food truck tacos. Elias shrugged, picking at a carnitas edge, the spice burning his tongue like regret. Better than feeling the real one. Theo didn't push, but his silence spoke volumes, the kind of quiet that had anchored Elias through college crushes gone sour and family holidays laced with unspoken shame. By week's end, Elias felt the raw edges scab over. Enough to board the Amtrak back north, sketching app interfaces on his tablet to the rhythm of rattling tracks. Seattle welcomed him with deceptive calm, evergreens bowing under fresh snow that dusted the sound like powdered sugar on a bruise. Work piled up. A boutique winery in Woodinville needed bottle labels evoking misty vineyards, and Elias poured himself into it, colors blooming vibrant against his pallor. Harlan's absence was a specter in every email chain. Voss Dynamics updates landing like shrapnel, merger talks heating up, stock whispers in the trades. Elias resisted Googling him, but temptation won in weak moments, headlines painting Harlan as the golden boy sealing deals over steak at the Metropolitan Grill. December crept in with fairy lights strung across Pike Place, the market stalls heaped with Dungeness crab and wreaths redolent of pine. Elias hosted a solstice party in his apartment, Theo corralling a motley crew of designers and baristas, eggnog spiked with rum chasing away the chill. Laughter echoed off exposed beams, but Elias caught himself scanning faces for Harlan's profile, the betrayal a dull ache under his ribs. As midnight tolled, they lit candles on the fire escape, flames dancing like illicit promises, and Elias whispered intentions to the stars. Release, rebirth, resilience. The nausea returned insidious. Mornings now a ritual of ginger tea and saltines pilfered from Theo's stash. Freelance deadlines blurred under fatigue. Elias napping on his couch amid half-finished mock-ups, dreams haunted by Harlan's touch, fingers ghosting his hip bones, breath hot against his ear. "Just stress," he muttered, scrolling WebMD in the glow of his laptop, but intuition gnawed like winter wind. Christmas Eve found him at a clinic in First Hill. The waiting room a symphony of coughs and muffled sobs, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like doubts. The doctor, a no-nonsense woman with salt and pepper hair and a lanyard badge reading Dr. Lena Vasquez, delivered the news in clipped compassion. Positive for HCD, early ultrasound confirming a tiny flicker of life. Elias stared at the grainy printout, a peanut-shaped shadow pulsing in grayscale, the room spinning slower than the ferry's wake. "How far?" he managed, voice athread, and she charted it to late October. That weekend in the San Juans, kayaks abandoned for the cabin's loft bed, Harlan's body a landscape Elias had explored with reverent hands. "Options are yours," Dr. Vasquez said, handing him pamphlets on prenatal care and support groups for queer parents, her eyes steady with the weight of stories untold. Outside, snow swirled in eddies, blanketing the city in hush. Elias walked to California Anderson Park, benches empty under skeletal oaks, and sank onto one, the ultrasound clutched like a talisman. Fear coiled tight. How to raise a child alone in a one-bedroom with rent creeping toward $2,000 a month. Harlan's child, conceived in love now ashes. A secret tether binding him to the man who'd severed them clean. Tears froze on his lashes, but beneath the terror bloomed something fierce. This life unasked for was his to claim. No alpha decrees, no boardroom vetoes. Just Elias Thorne, 28 and unraveling, vowing to shield this spark from the storm. Back home, he cleared a drawer for onesies scavenged from a consignment shop in Fremont. Tiny flannels in sage and navy, absurdly small. Theo arrived with Thai takeout, sensing the shift in Elias's silence, and when the truth spilled over pad CW, his friend enveloped him in a bear hug, curls tickling Elias's chin. "Holy shit, Eli. A mini you? Or a mini Harlan with that jawline?" Laughter cracked through the sobs, tentative but real, and Theo pledged co-parenting shifts, his own dreams of gallery shows deferred for midnight feedings. "We're a village now," he said, toasting with mango sticky rice, and Elias clung to that, the first buoy in choppy waters. January's ice locked the city in stasis, but Elias moved deliberate. Prenatal yoga in a Capitol Hill studio where queer dads swap tips on midwives and maternity leave hacks. Job hunting beyond freelance, landing a junior role at a nonprofit digitizing indigenous art in Pioneer Square. Benefits including parental coverage that eased the knot in his gut. Ultrasounds became milestones, the peanut evolving into a profile with thumb-sucking habit. Dr. Vasquez charting growth against norms Elias memorized like code. He wrote letters to the bump, unsent missives in a leather journal, pouring out fears of fatherhood's unknowns, Harlan's shadow looming large. "Your dad was a force, little one. Taught me to want more. But I'll teach you to need less." Spring teased with crocuses pushing through mulch in Discovery Park. Elias's belly a subtle curve under loose Henleys, hidden from prying eyes at work. Theo threw a baby shower disguised as a design collab potluck, friends gifting board books illustrated by local queer artists, and a bassinet carved from reclaimed cedar. Elias felt the swell of community, a counterweight to isolation's pull, but nights alone amplified the what-ifs. Would Harlan notice the absence of Elias's texts, the ghosted invites to industry mixers? Scrolling LinkedIn one evening he saw it, Voss Dynamics merger finalized, Harlan beaming in a press photo, arm around Reed Kensington, the blonde ex's hand possessive on his elbow. The caption touted strategic partnerships, but Elias read betrayal in the subtext, Reed's re-entry a calculated play in the game Elias had never learned the rules for. Rage simmered then, hot and unbidden, Elias hurling his phone across the room, screen cracking against the wall. He paced the apartment, hands cradling his middle, the baby kicking as if in solidarity. "Fuck him," he whispered to the flutter, but the words tasted like ash. Harlan had loved him, fiercely, fleetingly, then dumped him cold for ambition's altar. Read the sacrificial offering to seal the deal. Elias wouldn't beg. He'd build instead, brick by resilient brick, even as the heart he'd mended threatened to crack anew. By May, the bump was undeniable, Elias switching to elastic waist slacks for client meetings, fielding compliments on his glow with wry deflections. A routine checkup brought complications, gestational diabetes looming. Dr. Vasquez prescribing monitors and carb counts that turned meals into math. Theo moved in temporarily, his presence a buffer against the loneliness that crept in at dusk, when the city lights twinkled like Harlan's forgotten promises. One evening as they assembled the crib in the nursery corner, walls painted soft teal with stenciled constellations, Elias's water broke early, panic flooding the room like the sound at high tide. Sirens wailed through Seattle's veins as the ambulance tore toward Swedish Medical Center, Elias gripping Theo's hand like a lifeline, contractions twisting his gut sharper than any design critique. "Breathe, Eli, in through the nose, out like you're fogging a mirror," Theo coached, his voice steady amid the paramedics' clipped directives, monitors beeping a frantic Morse. Labor hit like a squall, hours blurring in the birthing suite's controlled chaos. Dr. Vasquez arriving in scrubs, her calm a anchor as Elias pushed through pain that dwarfed heartbreak's sting. "You're doing this," she urged, and at 4:17 a.m., under fluorescence humming like distant fairies, River Voss Thorne entered the world with a cry that shattered the room's tension. 7 pounds of wrinkled fury with Harlan's stormy eyes and Elias's freckled nose. Exhaustion claimed Elias first, skin clammy against starched sheets, but joy pierced the fog as he cradled River, the baby's latch instinctive, tiny fist curling against his chest. Theo snapped Polaroids, Elias's tear-streaked grin, River's downy head haloed by morning light filtering through blinds, vowing to frame them for the nursery wall. Discharge brought them home to Capitol Hill, the apartment transformed. Bassinet by the bed, freezer stocked with lasagnas from the office crew, a white noise machine humming ocean waves to mimic the sound. Sleepless nights became rhythm. River's wails syncing with Elias's feeds, Theo rotating shifts like a well-oiled startup. Fatherhood unfolded raw and revelatory, Elias trading freelance deadlines for burp cloths and board books, the non-profit gig flexing to remote hours that let him rock River through colic cries at dawn. Seattle's summer sun filtered tentative through evergreens, park strolls in Discovery Park yielding to picnics where river cooed at ravens, Elias narrating the world in whispers. That's the lighthouse keeping ships from the rocks, just like us. Community enveloped them. The queer parents group at the cafe met weekly, swapping stories of donor inseminations and custody battles, their circle a quilt of chosen kin. Theo, ever the artist, sketched River's portraits in charcoal, capturing the baby's gummy smiles that melted Elias's resolve daily. Yet Harlan's ghost lingered etched in River's gaze, those gray irises flashing in sunlight, a mirror to the man who'd sired him without knowing. Elias avoided news of Voss dynamics, but whispers filtered through. Harlan's stock soaring post-merger, Reed Kensington installed as COO. Their engagement announced in the Stranger Society page, a glossy photo of intertwined hands flashing diamond promise. Elias burned the clipping in the sink, flame-curling paper like his scorn, but ashes couldn't erase the pang, envy for the life Harlan chose, resentment for the one he'd left smoldering. October marked River's first milestone, a harvest festival in Fremont pulling Elias into the whirl of pumpkin patches and cider presses, Theo hoisting the baby onto hay bales while Elias carved jack-o'-lanterns with deliberate gouges. Laughter came easier now, River's babble a soundtrack to healing, but solitude amplified doubts. Was he enough? Single dad in a city of coupled facades, scraping by on grants and gigs, the weight of solo provision bowing his shoulders. A cold snap brought fever to River, tiny body scorching under blankets, Elias pacing her halls at Harborview, Theo brewing tea in the waiting lounge. He's tough like his pop, Theo said, and Elias nodded, vowing silently to armor them both against tempests. Winter deepened resolve. Elias enrolled in night classes at Seattle Central, graphic design bridging to UI/UX for apps serving marginalized voices, queer health trackers, indigenous language preservers. Professors praised his intuitive flows, empathy in pixels, and opportunities bloomed. A pitch to a Portland startup yielding contract work that padded savings for River's college fund, however distant. Dates surfaced tentative, coffee with a barista named Jude, whose easy wit sparked over shared custody rants, but intimacy faltered, Elias pulling back at the thought of Harlan's claim lingering in River's DNA, a betrayal encoded. Spring unfurled with cherry blossoms dusting Queen and like confetti, River toddling on chubby legs in the apartment, Elias capturing videos sent to his mother in Reno, her replies effusive but edged with worry. Proud of you, son. But that man's shadow. Don't let it eclipse your son. Elias heeded it, curating Harlan's erasure. No photos, no stories of the alpha who'd stormed his heart then fled. Yet fate conspired otherwise. At a design conference in the convention center, Elias manned a booth for the nonprofit, River napping in a carrier against his chest, when Harlan Voss appeared, taller in person now, suit rumpled from travel, eyes widening as they locked on the boy. Time fractured. Harlan's approach was glacial, crowd parting like mist, his voice a rasp. Eli? Is that? He trailed off, gaze dropping to River's face, the resemblance a slap. Elias stiffened, protective arm curling tighter around his son, the conference din fading to a roar in his ears. Harlan. This isn't. But words jammed, emotion surging like tidewater. Harlan reached out, tentative, fingers hovering near River's cheek, and the baby oblivious, gummed a fist with a gurgle that echoed their shared blood. He's mine, Harlan breathed, not question but revelation, and Elias's world tilted anew, the past crashing against the present like waves on unforgiving shore. They retreated to a quiet lounge overlooking the waterfront, Harlan shedding his jacket with mechanical grace, Elias nursing a water while River explored a rattle under Theo's watchful eye, summoned by frantic text, his arrival a silent bulwark. Harlan's questions tumbled. Timelines aligning with the San Juans, the secrecy a shield Elias had forged alone. Why didn't you tell me? Harlan demanded, voice cracking the polished veneer, and Elias met his stare, steel in his spine. You made your choice. Cold, remember? I made mine for us. Harlan recoiled, Reed's name unspoken but heavy. The merger's price tag in human currency. I thought it was best for the company. For stability. Elias laughed bitter. Stability? You traded us for stock ticks. The conversation stretched taut, Harlan pleading glimpses, visits, support, anything, and Elias waited, River's laughter a tether to mercy. Not yet, he said finally, gathering his son, Theo flanking like a sentinel. Earn it. Harlan nodded, defeated, slipping a card with his private line. The door closing on fractured possibility. Elias walked into the salt-laced air, River heavy in his arms, the encounter a seismic shift. Not closure but complication, forcing cracks in the walls he'd built so high. Summer solstice brought clarity amid the longest days, Elias journaling feverishly. Pros of co-parenting against cons of reopened wounds. River's future a compass pointing toward wholeness over isolation. Theo mediated late-night debates over wine, his pragmatism cutting through Elias's turmoil. The kid deserves both skies, stormy or not. Elias conceded, arranging a neutral meet at Golden Gardens Park, picnic blankets spread under madrona trees, waves lapping like hesitant apologies. Harlan arrived early, awkward in khakis and a Henley that strained against his frame, a stuffed orca toy clutched like contrition. River warmed slow then sudden, crawling into Harlan's lap, tiny hands exploring the stranger dad's stubble with delight. Elias watched, heart of ice. Harlan's unfeigned, stories spilling of Amarillo boyhoods and coding dreams, echoes of the man Elias had loved. Laughter bridged gaps, tentative plans sketched. Park days, story hours, but boundaries held firm, Elias's trust a slow thaw. Yet Reed's shadow loomed. Harlan confessed the engagement a facade, merger leverage crumbling under personal cost, divorce papers filed in quiet. I was scared, Eli, of losing everything I'd built. Elias absorbed it, anger ebbing to empathy's tide. You almost lost more. River's nap signaled end. Harlan lingering for a goodbye hug that lingered too long. Scent of cedar and sea stirring embers Elias thought extinguished. Autumn leaves carpeted the paths of Green Lake, crimson and gold swirling underfoot as Elias pushed River's stroller, Harlan matching stride with a thermos of cider passed hand to hand. Their reunions had ritualized, weekly outings framed as co-parenting trials, neutral ground where Harlan's alpha edges softened into dad mode, hoisting River onto shoulders for duck feeds, his laughter booming freer than boardroom echoes. Elias observed from afar at first, sketching park vignettes on his phone, Harlan's broad back silhouetted against the water, River's glee a bridge, but proximity thawed defenses, conversations veering from custody logistics to shared silences heavy with unsaid. Harlan's life unraveled in fragments. The penthouse sold post-merger, Reed's exit a scorched earth affair with NDAs and tabloid whispers in the Seattle Times. Tech Titans turbulent split. Harlan relocated to a craftsman bungalow in Wallingford, closer to Elias's orbit, filling weekends with River's milestones. First steps wobbling across creaky floors, first words mangling dada into joyful garble. Elias joined sporadically, drawn by the pull of domesticity. A barbecue on Harlan's deck overlooking the canal, grill smoke curling with stories of vast dynamics pivot to ethical AI. Harlan's eyes alight with purpose renewed. Lost myself in the climb, he admitted over esmeralda, marshmallow goo on his fingers as River smeared chocolate on his knee. You and him, you're the summit. Elias wavered, nights replaying touches accidental. Harlan's hand steadying his as they chased River through leaf piles, the brush of knuckles igniting sparks long banked. Theo warned over brunches at Le Panier, croissants flaking as he gestured emphatic. Don't let nostalgia blind you to the knife he wielded. Elias nodded, but dreams betrayed him. Harlan's body familiar terrain, mapped anew with River's cries as soundtrack, waking him sweat-damp and yearning. Professional lines blurred too. Harlan commissioned Elias for a rebrand, sessions in the bungalow's sunlit study stretching late, blueprints forgotten for wine and what-ifs. November rains returned biblical, confining them indoors, Harlan's home a cocoon of leather-bound books and reclaimed wood. River napping in a corner crib amid toys Harlan sourced from Portland artisans, hand-painted blocks in queer spectrum hues. One stormy afternoon, thunder rumbling like unmet promises, River down for siesta, tension crackled. Harlan poured ambers from a decanter, glasses clinking as he sat too close on the leather sofa. I never stopped loving you, Eli. Dumping you, it was cowardice, carving out the parts that scared me most. Elias sipped, burn matching the one in his chest. Love? You froze me out like a bad investment. Harlan's hand found his thigh, thumb circling slow. Let me invest now. Fully. The kiss ignited inevitable, Harlan's mouth claiming with alpha hunger tempered by contrition. Elias yielding, then pulling back, breath ragged. River changes the math. No half measures. Harlan nodded, vows spilling. Therapy sessions unpacking ambition's toxins. Board seats yielded for work-life recalibration. Elias tested boundaries. Dinners at his apartment, Harlan chopping garlic for pasta while River banged pots. Domestic symphony Elias hadn't dared compose alone. Intimacy rebuilt brick by tentative brick. Shared baths for the baby evolving to stolen showers. Harlan's soapy hands tracing stretch marks like badges of honor. Beautiful, he'd murmur, and Elias believed. Scars fading under reverence. Holiday lights twinkled premature. Harlan hosting a low-key Thanksgiving in Wallingford. Turkey brined with Theo's input. Table extended for Elias's mother flown in from Reno. Her initial wariness melting over pie as River toddled between legs. He's a good man trying, she confided later, hugging Elias in the guest room. Her perfume a time capsule of Ohio summers. Elias conceded, the evening's warmth seeping into fissures, but dawn brought Reed's specter. A package on the doorstep, unsigned but unmistakable, legal docs from Kensington's firm, alleging Harlan's irregular parentage claims as merger sabotage, demanding DNA tests and injunctions against contact. Rage fractured the idyll. Elias confronted Harlan mid-morning feed. River oblivious on a playmat, formula bottle propped. What the hell, Harlan? Reed's gunning for custody angles, says you're unstable, using River to tank his rep. Harlan paled, scrolling the attached email on his phone, expletives low under his breath. Bastard's bluffing. Merger fallout, he's bitter. Lost the equity slice. But Elias saw red flags waving. Harlan's delayed disclosure of escalating threats. Voicemails from Reed slurring accusations of poaching my future for your little side hustle. Trust eroded swift. Elias bundling River for abrupt exit. Stroller wheels rattling accusations down the walk. You said full transparency. This? It's the same cold calculus. Harlan pursued. Rain sheeting as he caught Elias's arm at the gate. Eli, wait. I'll lawyer up, bury this. For us. Elias wrenched free, hazel eyes flashing. Us? Or your empire's collateral. The door slammed on, please, Elias barricading in his apartment. Theo arriving with takeout and tirades. Told you, alphas don't shed stripes. Days stretched taut, court dates looming like storm fronts. Elias consulting a family attorney in Belltown. Pro bono through queer legal aid, her advice stern. Document everything, fortify single-parent status. River sensed the shift. Clingier in Elias's lap during story time. Tiny brow furrowing as thunder pealed. Reconciliation flickered fragile. Harlan's texts evolved from desperate to deliberate. Updates on filings, therapy notes shared unprompted. A bouquet of dahlias left on the stoop with a note. Roots run deep. Water them with me. Elias softened incremental. Supervised visits resuming in neutral cafes. Harlan's interactions with River meticulous. Diaper changes with fumbling pride. Lullabies crooned off-key from Amarillo hymns. Elias observed, thawing despite resolve. The pull of partnership a gravity he couldn't outrun. Christmas approached cloaked in tension. Reed's suit advancing to mediation. Whispers of paternity suits rippling through Harlan's circles. The night before Eve, snow blanketing the city rare and resolute. Harlan appeared unannounced. Coat dusted white, eyes shadowed. One chance to talk, no defenses. Elias relented, River asleep upstairs, mulled wine steaming on the sill. Harlan laid bare. Reed's vendetta rooted in betrayal, Harlan's coming out mid-engagement. The merger a desperate grasp at normalcy. I hurt you to hurt myself less. Stupid, selfish. Tears tracked Harlan's cheeks, unalpha vulnerability cracking Elias's walls. Prove it clean, Elias whispered, and Harlan knelt, ringless hand over heart. Every day starting now. New Year's dawned with tentative alliance, mediation yielding supervised access for Harlan. Reed's claims crumbling under DNA prelims confirming paternity. Irrefutable as River's grin. Elias exhaled, the weight lifting fractional, but scars itched reminder. Love's fragility in a world demanding perfection. As fireworks burst over the Space Needle, Visible from the apartment window, Harlan pulled Elias close, River between them in pajamas dotted with stars. To seconds, Harlan toasted with sparkling cider, and Elias clinked, hope flickering against doubt's draft. Winter's grip loosened into a false spring, Seattle's skies parting blue as fractured alliances mended under mediation's glare. Harlan's bungalow became way station, River shuttling between homes with diaper bags stuffed like peace treaties, Elias's practical onesies mingling with Harlan's artisan bibs. Elias navigated the dance wary, mornings dropping River at daycare in Finney Ridge before commuting to the non-profit, afternoons reclaiming him for park romps where Harlan joined seamless, pushing swings with synchronized ease. Conversations deepened, Harlan unveiling therapy's excavations, childhood ranch hands masking queerness, boardroom alphas mirroring buried shame. You were my mirror, Eli, showing me whole, he'd say, and Elias absorbed. His own sessions at a queer clinic unpacking abandonment's echoes, River's existence a bomb rewriting narratives. Professional orbits intersected serendipitous. Elias's UI work caught Voss dynamics I knew, Harlan pitching collaboration on an app for LGBTQ+ family resources, secure chats, legal templates, community forums coded with empathy. Meetings in Harlan's study stretched generative, whiteboards scrawled with wireframes, River napping in a pack-and-play amid the chaos. Proximity reignited sparks, Harlan's knee brushing Elias's under the table, lingering glances over laptop screens, but Elias held reins, intimacy capped at chaste kisses goodnight, trust a seedling too tender for tempests. Theo monitored skeptical, brunches laced with probes. Hearts heal crooked sometimes. You're straight yet? Elias demurred, but mirrors betrayed the flush returning to his cheeks. May bloomed betrayal's thorn. Reed Kensington resurfaced venomous, leaking Dr. Docs to tech blogs, emails fabricated painting Harlan's merger as nepotistic ploy, River a PR shield for queerness. Headlines scorched. Voss's secret spawn. Empire built on lies? Voss stock dipped. Investors balking. Harlan's fortress cracking under scrutiny. Elias fielded calls from reporters camping his stoop, shielding River's ears from shouted queries. Fury boiling as he stormed Harlan's office, now a warren of PR spins and legal briefs. You said it was buried. Now my son's a tabloid prop. Harlan, hollow-eyed behind his desk, confessed partial. Reed's hacker ally unearthed old texts, twisting context into scandal. I shielded you, kept your name out. Elias recoiled. Shielded? Or sideline me again for the brand? Schism widened, visits halted. Elias barricading with River in Capitol Hill. Nanny cams vigilant. Theo crashing on the couch with baseball bat quips. Sleepless, Elias scrolled the vitriol. Trolls dubbing River the merger mistake. Allies distancing Harlan in donor dinners. Empathy warred with wrath. Late-night voicemails from Harlan cracked raw. I failed you twice. Don't let him win by losing us. Elias deleted them, but saves lingered in a hidden folder. Voice memos a lifeline in isolation's fog. River's intuition sharpened, tantrums flaring at Harlan's absence, chubby arms reaching for photos Elias hid, the boy's confusion a dagger mirroring Elias's own. Climax crested midsummer. A custody hearing in King County Courthouse sweltering under unseasonal heat, wood-paneled rooms thick with tension. Reed testified slick suit starched, alleging Harlan's volatile lifestyle endangered River. Citing leaked therapy notes, exaggerated merger stress as instability. Elias took the stand steady, voice unwavering. Harlan's growth honors our son. Reed, he's vengeance incarnate. Harlan followed, testimony unflinching. Apologies public, commitment vowed to the court. Eyes locking Elias's across the aisle with desperate clarity. I dumped love for fear once. Never again. Judge Ramirez, a stern Latina with silver streaks, deliberated swift. Joint custody granted Harlan, supervised lifts on Reed's claims, protective order barring interference. Relief flooded post-ruling, but euphoria soured en route home, Harlan's car tailing Elias's through traffic, pulling parallel at a red light on Aurora Avenue, window down urgent. Eli, wait, let's celebrate. Dinner just us. Elias's pulse thrummed, temptation coiling, but Theo's text buzzed warning. Check the feeds. Harlan's phone lit simultaneous, face draining as he scanned. Reed's final gambit. A viral post from an anonymous account, blurry photos of Elias and Harlan's early trysts, timestamped pre-dump, captioned the setup, how Voss played us all. Staged? Hacked? The implication stung. Harlan's love a calculated lure, merger bait to soften rivals via vulnerable insider. Betrayal's blade twisted deep. Elias veered off at the next exit, speeding to Wallingford, Harlan trailing futile. Confrontation erupted on the bungalow lawn. River napping inside with a sitter, sun dipping low painting them accusatory gold. Was it all strings, Harlan? Reel me in then cut loose when the deal closed. Harlan denied vehement, phone thrust forward. Logs showing Reed's IP trails, digital forensics from his team confirming breach. He's unraveling. Eli lost the firm backing, grasping at ghosts. But doubt festered, Elias's voice fracturing. Ghosts? That's us now, haunting your clean slate. Harlan advanced, hands cupping Elias's face, thumbs brushing tears. No. You're my north. Fight this with me. Elias fled inward, bolting the door, collapsing against it as sobs racked, River's monitor crackling with soft snores a counterpoint to chaos. Theo arrived bearing ice cream and ire, but Elias waved him silent, curling fetal on the rug. Harlan's pleas muffled through wood. Dawn brought clarity cold. Love demanded excavation, not erasure. Elias texted Harlan coordinates. A therapist's office in Ballard, neutral ground for joint sessions, truth scalpel to carve rot. Harlan arrived early, sleeves rolled, vulnerability etched. Whatever it takes, he echoed, and Elias nodded, hand tentative in his, the first step on fractured path. Sessions unearthed layers. Harlan's fear of queerness as corporate kryptonite, Reed's gaslighting amplifying insecurities, Elias's abandonment scars fueling hypervigilance. Breakthroughs came incremental, Harlan resigning his CEO perch to a trusted COO, prioritizing family over fortune. Elias admitting the dump scar ran deeper than flesh, trust a rebuild requiring time's mortar. River bridged them, his second birthday a milestone in the backyard. Cake-smeared faces under string lights. Harlan's gift a custom mobile of constellation orbs spinning lazy. As guests milled, Harlan pulled Elias aside, alcove shadowed. I love you then now always. No dumps, no colds. Just us. Kiss sealed it slow, Harlan's lips tentative seeking permission. Elias granting with sigh. Bodies aligning like puzzle edges long separated. Intimacy rekindled gentle. Nights in the bungalow with River between. Harlan's arms encircling both, whispers weaving futures. A house in Magnolia with views of the Sound. Adoptions dreamed for siblings. Careers entwined in ethical tech. Reed's shadow receded, lawsuit dismissed for lack of merit. His exile to East Coast firms a footnote in trades. Fall's palette deepened Seattle's hues, maples igniting along the waterfront as Elias and Harlan navigated cohabitation's choreography. Elias's apartment sublet to Theo, boxes migrating to Wallingford in a weekend blur of laughter and minor squabbles over closet space. River thrived in the flux, his vocabulary blooming with deda-two distinctions, toddling between the kitchen island where Harlan pureed squash, and the living room rug where Elias sketched app interfaces. Domesticity wove subtle spells. Mornings with coffee brewed strong, Harlan's Texas drawl narrating stock-optional news while Elias nursed River. Afternoons spilling into Elliott Bay walks, hands linked unapologetic, the city's pulse affirming their rhythm. Challenges persisted, humanistic in their grind, Harlan's adjustment to diminished spotlight, consulting gigs affording freedom but ego's quiet bruise. Elias's freelance swells demanding late nights, Harlan stepping into dad duties with growing grace, bedtime stories laced with Amarillo lore. Therapy anchored them bi-weekly. Dr. Patel's office a sanctuary of potted ferns and frank dialogue, unpacking triggers. Elias's flinch at Harlan's travel mentions, Harlan's overcompensation in grand gestures masking insecurity. Growth isn't linear, Dr. Patel reminded, and they leaned in, vulnerabilities shared like heirlooms. Winter holidays crystallized bonds, a joint tree in the bungalow strung with ornaments. River's handprint baubles and glittered clay, Harlan's vintage glass icicles from his mother's attic. Elias's Reno kin arrived en masse, mother enveloping Harlan in tentative hugs, siblings quizzing him on fatherhood hacks over prime rib. You too, it's real now, she whispered to Elias post-feast, watching Harlan chase River through snow-dusted yard. their whoops echoing. New Year's toasted intimate, just them on the deck, champagne flutes raised to horizons. Harlan's nonprofit pivot, mentoring queer entrepreneurs. Elias's app launch, Voss-backed but independently helmed, empowering families like theirs. Spring heralded expansion, house hunting in Magnolia. A craftsman with wraparound porch overlooking the Sound. Closing papers signed amid River's gleeful destruction of moving boxes. Unpacking unearthed relics. Elias's journal of unsent letters, Harlan reading select entries tear-streaked, vowing amends in margins. Intimacy flowered full nights lovers reclaiming, bodies sinking with years' wisdom. Harlan's alpha tempered to equal, Elias's quiet strength emboldened. "You're my everything," Harlan murmured post-climax, fingers tracing River's ultrasound echo on the nightstand, and Elias believed, wholeness a tide lifting all. Yet humanism tempered triumph. Reed's downfall filtered through channels, disbarment proceedings for ethical breaches. His isolation a quiet justice Elias pitted in flashes, compassion's thread weaving through scars. Harlan volunteered at shelters, channeling alpha drive to aid displaced queer youth. Elias joining for story hours where River distributed crayons like treasures. Community rooted them deeper. Pride floats in June, Harlan hoisting River on shoulders amid rainbow confetti. Elias's designs emblazoned on banners fluttering proud. Summer solstice marked year 2 of reunion, a backyard vow under strung lights. Not legal yet but binding. Harlan's pledge of unwavering presence, Elias's of open-hearted risk. River, cake smeared and beaming, toddled between, the trio a testament to redemption's labor. As dusk deepened, Harlan drew Elias close, foreheads touching. From cold dump to this, our secret changed everything. Elias smiled, hand on River's curls. Not secret anymore. Just ours. Years blurred forward, the Magnolia home alive with River's school plays and sibling arrivals. Adopted twins from foster care, a boy and girl with Harlan's grin and Elias's freckles. Chaos a symphony of compassion. Harlan's legacy shifted from ledgers to lives mentored. Elias's pixels platforms for voices long silenced. Betrayals faded to footnotes, love's narrative rewritten daily in small graces. Pancake Sundays, soundside sunsets, the unshakable knowledge that freedom bloomed in authenticity's soil, identity a shared garden tended with care. In the end they stood resilient. Alpha and artist, fathers forged in fire, hearts mended not flawless but fierce, whispering to the stars that identity's truest form was chosen, compassion's quiet revolution the only empire worth building.